Recording. There we go. Cool. All right. So it's being recorded, and yeah, Nikki will put the recording probably on a Google Drive and then share the link with everyone afterwards. Ooh. In that case, I think we can kick off. Sheree, if you wanna lead, then
sure. Okay. Yeah. Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us at our first community of practice today. Just some house rules. If you guys have any questions, please add it in the chat, or you can just raise a hand and then we'll address it later. And please could everyone keep their mics on mute. Okay, so thank you for all your introductions. Just some of the contents that we're going to go over today. So Finn and I will just do brief introductions, and then we'll go over the aims for the Teampact series as well as today's session. And then we'll look into the basics of attendance. So what is attendance and what does it mean to you? And then we'll unpack it a bit more by looking into practical examples to understand the language of attendance. So frequency, duration, coverage, what does it all mean? And then we'll look at attendance data users. So what kind of attendance data can help us achieve different objectives? And then just before we wrap up, we'll do a short group activity and then have our closing remarks. Okay, so just introduction from my side. My name is Sheree. For those of you who I haven't met before, I think I've met all of you though. I'm the junior account manager at Teampact, so part of my role is to manage users, and then I'm also part of the master's program at the University of Cape Town for program evaluation, and we're currently doing an evaluation for the Ellen Gray Orbis Foundation. So part of my role is to also assist any organizations with the M&E requirements. Thanks. That's me. Finn?
Hi guys. Sorry, my little mute bar takes a minute to show. I'm sure I've met everyone here, but in case I haven't, my name is, and for people on the recording who I might not have met, my name's Finn. I am the platform manager of Teampact, so a lot of you know roughly what I do, but I work with Sheree to engage with the users of the Teampact system and work out what it is that you guys like about it, what you don't like, what you would like to be added, what you'd like to be taken away, and to work all of that stuff out with the developers. So most of you won't know any of our developers, but I'm sort of the translator between you guys and those guys. And I recently submitted my master's thesis, which was an exploration of challenges related to the collection of attendance data for non-profit organizations in the Western Cape. So yeah, I've read way too much about attendance data, so I'm going to subject you all to that as well today. Sorry about that. And yeah, just another quick note before we start, which is that if this is all sort of, if this all feels either confusing or too basic for you, and your knowledge of attendance data is either side of this session, then don't worry, it's building we're kind of just laying the groundwork for more of these sessions going forward, where we discuss sort of in more depth and yeah, really go through some of the sort of more practical aspects of attendance data. Really, today is more of a theory session. Yeah, cool. Looking forward to chatting about the thing that I find very interesting and no one else does.
Okay, thank you, Finn. So I'm going to start now. Okay, so before we get into the basics of attendance data, I think that it's just good to share with you guys what a community of practice is, especially for those of you who haven't attended any of these before. So a community of practice is a type of network where we have peer-to-peer collaborative activities so that we can build member skills as well as your organizational capabilities. And the idea is that this would lead to improved program service delivery so that it can result in best practices so that it can improve organizations' capabilities to help vulnerable groups or people, vulnerable groups. So the idea is that it's an opportunity for Teampact users to create a collaborative capacity for learning and innovation, especially around using the data that we collect through the app. So we'd like to focus on building and sharing knowledge amongst yourselves, organizational staff, administrators, managers, coaches, etc. And then there's also a reliance on informal phenomena, such as passion and relationships for people in this line of work to share their experiences and learn from each other. So in a community of practice, it has sort of three categories. So the first one is the domain. So that is what we care about, right? This is a shared interest and a language or framework for us to understand key issues that we face in our work practice. And it's really what defines the community of practice's purpose. So in the case today, it is about unpacking the language of attendance data and how we can use it to inform best practice. Next is community. So who cares about it? So it is collective critical inquiry, and also it's time for us to reflect on our practices so that we can focus on building a shared identity. And we hope for Teampact users to build a collective identity through this community of practices. Regular interaction enhances it. We aim to have about 5 of these throughout the year. And then lastly, we have practice. So how can we address our interests collectively? So the idea is for the community of practice to provide an opportunity for us to learn from each other and overall heighten potential for organizations to improve program service delivery by using the information that we share. Next slide, please. Okay, so the aims of today's session is to unpack the language of attendance. So we'd like to ask, how can I better understand the language of attendance? And the idea is that as program managers, as field workers, the more we gain greater understanding of social issues faced by vulnerable populations, the more and more components we have to add to our programs so that we can bring about desired change to our beneficiaries. And by doing so, we feel that it's good to have critical inquiry as well as discussions where we ask ourselves, how can my ability to articulate different types of attendance data help me to better make use of it to maximize organizational processes as well as impact. Okay, so this is just a question for everyone. Just at its basic, what does attendance mean to you? You can share your answer in the chat or just raise your hand and switch on your mic and share with us. No one? Okay, thank you, Nikki. Nikki says how engaged participants are. Natasha. Attendance means to assist program monitoring and evaluations. And Sam says that it's to track participation. So thank you. All of you guys are on the right track over there. So we're just gonna unpack a very basic meaning of attendance. So at its simplest, attendance can be once off, and this is the building block of what we are talking about. So once off attendance is a person or people being in a space, can be physical or digital, for an amount of time, participating in an activity or event. So that's once off attendance. And then we move on to longitudinal individual attendance. And that is a collection of individuals' attendance over time. So for example, your beneficiary attended on the 1st of March between 10 and 11 a.m., on the 8th of March between 12 and 1, and on the 19th of March between 9 and 10. And then overall, we have our aggregated attendance, which is aggregated collective attendance, which is a detailed collection of the longitudinal attendance records of all the individuals in your program. And this gives us very important M&E stats. For example, on the 19th of March, 12 beneficiaries attended, or the average attendance of my under 16 soccer team was 12 per session. Yeah, so thank you. Finn is going to move over to more practical examples to help you understand the language of attendance. And that's all from my side. Over to you, Finn. Thanks.
Cool, thanks, Sheree. So yeah, just to kind of recap what we've covered so far, we've discussed basically the building blocks of attendance as we're going to talk about them now. So firstly, we have the sort of what is one person attending. So it's a person in a place, digital or physical, for an amount of time doing a thing. So that could be someone playing a soccer match for an hour and a half. It could be someone in a school classroom for 45 minutes. It could be someone going surfing for an hour, or it could be someone on a Zoom call at a community of practice for an hour. So attendance is basically person in place for time. And then we can kind of add that all together to build up a record of someone's attendance, like you will see in, for example, your Teampact accounts. And then we can add all of those together and have sort of a collective bucket of attendance data, which is all of our participants, how long they're spending with us, when they're with us, and what they're doing. Cool. So what we're going to do here is just a little example that we often do at Waves for Change events. And this bit of the sort of session is most useful for sort of field workers and coaches and facilitators to understand the importance of attendance data. So if anyone would like us to run this kind of thing with their facilitators in the future, please do just let us know. So what we've got is an imaginary charity. It's the Rainbow Mental Health Initiative. And we have 3 beneficiaries. We have Courtney, Zintle, and Keenan. And we have a 5-week program. So that might not line up with your program, but yeah, this one's just 5 weeks and we cover a different topic each week. So in week 1, we discuss connection. So making interpersonal bonds. Week 2, resilience, so responding to challenges as they happen. Week 3, confidence, so that's going out into the world and yeah, being confident in yourself. Week 4, self-affirmation, so that's saying kind words to yourself. And week 5, kindness, being kind to other people. So that's the curriculum, and what we want is to deliver as much of that curriculum as possible to our participants. So session 1, everybody attends. Our attendance for that session is 3, and Courtney has attended, Zintle has attended, and Keenan has attended. Session 2, only Zintle attended. So Courtney and Keenan did not attend. So our session attendance is 1 for that session. And yeah, we have some potential dropouts here. Session 3, we get Keenan back. Maybe one of the coaches called him after session 2 and said, "What's up? Are you going to join the next one?" But we've still lost Courtney there. So now Keenan's received a bit of the curriculum. Cynthia is going strong, and Courtney hasn't attended yet since session 1. Session 4, we get Cynthia and Keenan again. So we have a session total of 2. Session 5, we get Cynthia and Keenan again. So Courtney dropped out after session 1. Cynthia was a very regular attender and received all of the curriculum. So she's built skills in connection, resilience, confidence, self-affirmation, and kindness. So she's really received the bulk of the entirety of the curriculum, and is going strong on our impact metrics potentially. And so these are the overall attendance numbers of the participants involved. So all of this stuff obviously is stuff that we provide you within Teampact. So the ability to track what was done, when it was done, how long your beneficiaries with the program, and then obviously dropouts potential like Courtney. Cool, so that's just a sort of indication of what we mean when we talk about attendance. I'm going to go into that in a little bit more detail just now, but first we're going to talk about some technical terminology. So this bit is, this is sort of into the weeds of the terminology of attendance. And it's not necessarily that you'll need to use this terminology in your programs going forward, but it's really, really useful, we've found, to have an understanding of it so that you know what you're talking about and you can communicate it more effectively with, for example, coaches or facilitators, as well as understanding what it is that you need when you're asked for something like impact assessment. Cool. So the first metric of attendance is coverage. So that's kind of the colors of the previous example that we talked about. So how much of the prescribed content was completed by the beneficiary? So in our mental health example, that was all the colorful sessions. In a football club, you might have defending, attacking, passing, and goalkeeping, and you want to cover that. In a maths class, you might do addition, subtraction, algebra, for example. So that's coverage. What have we done with the beneficiaries in the program? The next one is duration. So this will vary widely between your programs, but it's often a year or even longer. So how long did the beneficiary stay in the program for? So for us at Waves for Change, we have a year-long curriculum, or Tim might correct me, it might be 6 months nowadays. And that's kind of an interesting story in itself, us working out how long the program needed to be in order to sort of maximize the impact that we were making. So how long did the beneficiary stay in the program is duration. And then frequency is how often did the beneficiary attend the program, or how often are they supposed to attend the program. So coverage and duration and frequency. How long, sorry, there's people in the house next door doing some construction. If you can hear noises, I apologize about that. So the duration, how long did they stay in the program, times the frequency, how often did they attend the program, plus what they covered is what we call dosage. So you can think of dosage a lot like medicine. So if you think that your beneficiaries are attending your program in order to receive some benefit, much like they might do if they were taking some medication, the dosage is what they need. So with dosage, you might say you take a pill every morning for a week. And for a program, you might say you can attend a soccer training session once a week for a year. And that's your dosage. Okay, so that's the sort of the bulk of the sort of individual attendance. We're looking at how people interact with your program. And then we have another missing piece in this puzzle, which you will have all heard of from funders and M&E reports that you've written, and all sorts of places you'll be hearing about reach. So reach is separate to those things. It's also a measure of attendance, and it's also very useful, but it's separate to the kind of dosage discussion. And reach is it's much more straightforward than the rest of the metrics to measure. And it's just how many people attended my program at all during a specific period. So in the example of the Rainbow Mental Health Initiative, we'll go back to it now. we can see that we can also change it. I just did a little change here to make it the soccer initiative, and we did passing, defending, shooting, goalkeeping, and fitness, just to indicate that it's not about one specific curriculum. So the first question here is coverage. So I'll open it up now to the floor. If anyone wants to put in the chat or just put their hand up and unmute themselves and speak a little bit about the coverage of this program. What is the coverage, for example, of any of the beneficiaries there? What are we talking about when we talk about coverage?
Hi, it's Alistair. Hey, coverage for us would be both number, yeah, as we've spoken, a little bit different. Ours would be the number of students that we can connect with in an impact session, as well as what school that is happening at, the location where we are in. The length of time isn't so important as it will be good to know, but that would then lead to number of sessions that we have, and being able to collate that. I've been practicing that word, I keep getting it wrong, as to number of sessions at each school, how often we are impacting a school with our Let's Play clubs. That will be important coverage for us to note, and then we can also then see which schools we are not getting to as regularly, and that can raise alarm bells or feedback sessions while we're not in there anymore, kind of thing.
Okay, perfect. So a little bit of variation in the language there, which is cool. So in your context there, Alistair, coverage is more sort of what we're calling reach, is how wide your program is sort of covering beneficiaries or reaching beneficiaries, however you prefer to frame it. Sure. Anyone else any thoughts on what we mean by coverage in this context here?
Okay, yeah, so our coverage would be minimal because it's one prescribed content that we try get in as many places as possible, which is then a stepping stone to the next level of our development, kind of thing. So perfect. Yeah, then reach is what we were looking for. Yeah. Cool.
So yeah, you would say your coverage is either minimal or sort of narrow in its scope, and the sort of the bulk of the program can be achieved in sort of once-off scenarios, and then the reach would be wider. Cool. So then we've got duration again. Does anyone have any kind of thoughts about duration in relation to your program or the context that we're talking about here? Is duration a particularly relevant aspect of attendance data for anyone on the call? I'm going to call on Tim if no one else. Natasha, cool. No, Natasha,
yeah,
go ahead.
So I was going to say duration is beneficial for us to know just, for example, Courtney in this example that has gone off, Keenan that missed, Keenan could have been sick on that day, whatever, but also for going back to Courtney to finding out why she dropped out or what the reason was. So the duration of participants staying within the program, for me is, are they interested? Is it still engaging? Is it still beneficial to them? So that for me would be the beneficial part of the duration of the program, and seeing whether the beneficiaries stay continuously throughout.
Perfect. So that's a really, really crucial aspect of tracking duration. So how long participants tend to stay in the program, is it still engaging for them? It's like a really, really important point. And yeah, one that's very much worth tracking. On the duration question, I might just call on Tim again, even though he thinks he's been saved. So Tim, I know there was some, I can't exactly remember how it went, which is why I'm calling on you. I know there was some discussion at Waves for Change of how long the curriculum was going to be. I don't know how long it is now, but I know that there was a discussion based on duration of program. Yeah, would you mind talking about that very briefly? Sorry to lurch.
I can talk briefly around, the duration question. We did a research, piece of research with the New School in New York a couple of years ago. And we were interested in how long it took beneficiaries in the Waves for Change programs, which is an after-school surfing program. How long did it take them to show mental health improvements? Because if we knew how many sessions children needed to attend to experience a benefit, it meant we could make our program, we could make sure that our program attracts children for that amount of time, so we can make it sticky. And we basically collected a well-being measure across about 2,000 children, and then we tracked the attendance of all those children, and we compared outcomes for children who attended lots of sessions like Zintle against children that didn't attend many sessions like Courtney. And we basically found that if children attend at least 8 after-school sessions, they experience a mental health improvement. But we then need to retain children in the service for them to prolong that improvement. Because if children then drop out after after 4 or 5 sessions, then the gains that they experience in those first 8 sessions aren't retained. So it helped us adjust our curriculum. I'm sure some of you probably get the same pressure like we do to scale, make your program shorter so you can work with more children. We now can push back a little bit on our funders and say, we need to retain children in these after school programs for a longer period of time. It takes about 8 sessions for them to settle. So we only start doing educational, integrating educational content into our programs after 8 sessions. And we know all this because we track the attendance really. So we now know that the amount of time it takes children to settle in our program is 8 sessions. And that has an implication on how long children remain with us for. Finn, does that answer your question?
Fantastically, thank you, Tim. So what Tim spoke about there was actually a couple of things. So duration being a really important aspect of the program. So once the kids are there, then it's really important to retain them for a longer time so that the lessons that they learn really stick. And he also talked about frequency initially. So they need to attend those 8 sessions to sort of really get stuck into the program. So really what Tim was talking about was, dosage. So he was talking about sort of all the aspects of attendance data in kind of one metric there. And this dosage metric, I'll definitely open up to the floor. This is sort of the one that we're most focused on in I guess attendance data tracking circles, if that's where I now am. It's this dosage measure. So this is the trickiest measure to track. It requires sort of a lot of information about participants over a long period of time. And yeah, does anyone have any thoughts about the dosage of their program? Any stories to tell about tracking that metric or not being able to track that metric or not needing to track that metric potentially? Does anyone want to talk to that?
Yeah, so I'll go in on that again, Finn. So I mean, I'm National Corpus Foundation, so we've got multiple programs. So, for example, like our sports program, our after-school formal sports program, which is a different sports code. It's year-long, it's every day. So the dosage with that one, it's keeping the kids off the streets and it's keeping them busy and it's keeping them. So there's them learning a formal sport, but there's no educational aspect to it. It's just them being busy and keeping off the streets. And then with our educational programs, is where we shorten it a bit. So it's those 6 weeks, 8 week, 9 week education-based program, which is again, like Tim was saying earlier, it's then the impact of what are they learning and can we keep them engaged for that amount of time? Because again, trying to do a year-long program might not work. Then also we've got challenges like weather, ESCOM, venues, things like that as well. So again, those interrupt and those so certain programs need to be adapted as well, just for the weather. So for example, we don't have an indoor center. So again, during winters, how do we adapt by keeping those kids still occupied and busy, but now we've got a crazy storm happening. So how do we engage them in those programs? So yeah, that's for us, that's how the dosage works. It's just being able to monitor and keep all the kids entertained throughout the year across the various programs.
Perfect. Thank you, Natasha. So Matthew, I saw you unmute, but I didn't hear anything.
Can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you now.
Okay, cool. I've been having problems with my sound. So on our side, dosage, I guess, similar to the lady that spoke is in two, because our program is split between the physical side and then the educational side. So dosage will be, we have 1 hour, 30 minutes to work with the kids, where there will be the 30 minutes on the life skills component side and the 1 hour on the whatchamacallit, on the skill side of the game of the sport, which is basketball. And then of course also dosage will be how many times do our facilitators go to the ground, meaning minimum twice their school. So the repetition side is twice at a school. And then so you take that and then you times it by the week, and then you times it by how also dosage, how long are we really running these programs within a year. On our side, it's about 10 months, because the first two, meaning December and January, you almost discard that because you're not doing anything. That's your planning and preparation. So yeah, it comes on our side, the dosage comes in that, which you can then quantify it into hours and then quantify it into days or quantify it into minutes, which sometimes, our funders want to see that. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. No, thank you, Matthew. And you raised another really interesting point there, which is actually the attendance of your facilitators. So we're talking a lot about the attendance of beneficiaries here, but I'm sure you're all equally interested in the attendance of your facilitators and where they are and when they're there and how long they're there for. So yeah, thank you for that, Matthew. The dosage of the beneficiaries, sure, working that out, as well as working out the broad attendance of your facilitators. Yeah, so you're probably not going to be asked by people like funders for that information as much, obviously, because the beneficiaries are the beneficiaries, but our staff are beneficiaries of the program too. Work experience and time in the sort of context of helping other people is yeah, a really important thing to think about as well. So thank you for that. And then reach. Here's another question that I definitely want to open up to the floor and understand how people think about reach. So Alistair kind of spoke to reach and coverage being sort of slightly different context or slightly different language in his context. But does anyone else have any thoughts about reach? So maybe I'll specifically prompt you to ask or to answer something about how you interact with funders with regards to reach. Is it a useful metric for you? How do you report on it? Yeah, what does reach mean to you as a person working in a nonprofit?
So Finn, I'll go again. Reach for us is again across the various diversity groups, and then as well the communities and the towns surrounding us. So for example, we're in Hermanus Khans by Stanford, and then also like our disability program versus our able-bodied program. So it's again, and then the age groups, the race, gender, all of those things. So it's who are we reaching ultimately with our programs. And so a lot of our funders, sometimes it's generally about, we would look about 14 and over who are still retraining in the program. Have we maintained keeping those age groups, or what is our biggest demographic groups? And usually our programs run between 10 to 14 is where we've got the most kids. But then again, those from 14, 18, they've been with us since the age of 8. So again, it's the reach and the duration that the specific groups and how many programs the kids have attended. So a lot of our kids in the sports program would have attended a lot of our Sports for Good programs as well. So it's again, how much are those beneficiaries, what is the value of the program to them, because what are they obtaining through the duration of their time with the foundation? So for us, that is where our reach comes in.
Perfect. No, thank you. So a really interesting point there again about reach by demographic, for example. So what is our reach among girls versus boys? What is our reach across different racial groups or in different locations? So yeah, that's a potentially as useful as reach data gets, is working out metrics like that. So like, where is our program hitting the most among certain demographics, and where is it perhaps missing? What can we do about that? Yeah, so a 5-star answer on the use of reach data. Does anyone else want to follow that by any chance? I wouldn't want to.
Quick
Matt.
one. And also I need to excuse myself, but I'll log in as I'm driving. I've got a meeting in Belleville, which is a drive. So, but the quick one, on our side, I guess reach is also geographical. Like, where are we reaching on our program in our area? So we have pilot areas, which is, as you guys know, Kailicha, Googs, Nyanga, and Philippi. So those are our pilot areas where we have programs there consistently. But then we do outreaches, meaning during school holidays or when people ask us in other areas that people are showing interest, and we go there, which is areas outside those pilot areas. So I think sometimes reach on our side is reach within our geographical areas and then reach outside those spaces. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you, Matthew. So reach across different areas of your program as well. So maybe you're, maybe not in your context, but maybe in a program there's a sort of regular attendance area of the program where you have a smaller number of people you're engaging more deeply, and then perhaps outreach programs, like you say, where you reach a larger number of people, but less often potentially. So yeah, super interesting. Also, at least for me, again, I'm never sure quite how interesting attendance data is, but it's interesting for me. Cool, guys. Does anyone have any thoughts that they want to contribute about any of the above? I'm not going to call on anyone. Nice. Okay, cool. We can move on in that case. So we can put answers in the chat, but I've got some examples of types of attendance here. So they are each types of attendance that we've discussed already. So number one on the far left, we can see 250 learners attended my program this year. If you want to pop in the chat or put your hand up, or what kind of attendance are we talking about here, just to kind of solidify what we've been talking about. Clue would be that, Alistair, you might have a different answer to me, which is totally fine. So what type of attendance are we looking at with 250 learners attended my program? Cool, I'm gonna skip through, even though I've got no messages so far. So that one would be reach. So it's a measure of how many individuals we reached, who attended. Equally, as raised by Natasha and Matthew, we could have said 250 female learners attended my program. That would be our reach among female learners. So yeah, that would be reach. Adrian attended my program for 6 months. I will up. Yeah, nice, Alistair. So that number one was reach. Correct, Heather. So this is duration, what we're talking about here. So knowing that Adrian attended our program for 6 months is the duration. Equally, we could say that the target duration for attendance would be 6 months in this case. So we could say Adrian should attend my program for 6 months to see maximum impact, although we would maybe use a different measure for that, which we'll get to. So number 3, Lauren attends my program 4 times a week. That one would be frequency. So this is, there you go. Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Ingrid. So here we're talking about the sort of the regularity, the frequency with which people attend our program. And those 2 metrics are really useful in themselves, but they combine into a much more useful metric down the line. So number 4 is that Bongani learned addition and subtraction. I'm really struggling to say subtraction at my math program, which would be coverage. So that's there we go. Thank you, Ingrid. Sorry, I'm rushing a little bit through that. I just don't want to close us off for discussion at the end of the hour. So yeah, that's coverage. That's what Bongani did at the program. Again, equally, when we talk about attendance, we can talk about what someone did or what someone is supposed to do in the future. So we can have targets for attendance and we can have actual recorded attendance. So we could say that at the program, Bongani should learn addition, subtraction, algebra, and geometry, say. Cool. And then number 5 is our gold attendance standard for certain things. It's the most complicated metric. And yes, Prince has nailed it. It's dosage. So Cherie attended quarterly for a year. There's a clue. Learning about M&E and attendance. So this one is dosage. This is a detailed measure of Cherie's attendance at the Teampact Communities of Practice. And yeah, it's useful for quite a variety of applications within the nonprofit context. So we'll talk very briefly now about what we can use these for, and we'll only talk about it briefly because we're going to be running more of these communities of practice where we dive more deeply into the uses of attendance data in its different forms, but we can sort of tease the conversation now just so that we have something to think about ahead of next time. So this is also a put your hand up and chat type of exercise, but I'll give some examples up front and then we can perhaps discuss those with relation to your own programs. So what can we use attendance data for? So here are some examples. And yeah, does anyone have any thoughts about what you use attendance data for, what type it might be, and how that relates to what we're looking at here? Very open question, just interested to hear how you guys are using attendance data. Whether you're using Teampact.
Alistair, yeah.
Hi, Alistair.
Yeah, looking at it from another side with the academy that we are running, would it be possible to, what is it, frequent duration, I think it is, with regards to number of hours spent on tuition, and to possibly see how effective that tuition is over a specific time length and how the marks improve for the students over time. That would help the tutors then checking that how effective are they in an hour of tuition, or do they actually need 2 hours, or can they make 2 hours 1 hour kind of thing?
Absolutely. So that right there for me is my personal most interesting avenue of attendance data, which is dosage. So we've got frequency and duration, which adds together to be a total number of hours spent in the program. So over a month, you might have 6 one-hour sessions for 6 total hours of content. And what we're looking at there is, I don't know if I can draw on this thing. I can. Let's see if it works. So that is very unneatly dosage for the purposes of impact assessment. So what you're talking about there, Alistair, is there an amount of time during which we can maximize the impact, which is the increase in grades, for example. So yeah, that is for me, it's the sort of the most useful aspect. Well, no, it's not the most useful. Everything's useful about attendance data, but that's one of the deepest, richest kind of use cases for attendance data is impact assessment. It is also, sadly, the trickiest to handle. It's particularly at scale. It's the one which can, cause most problems for nonprofits, but it's the one that we have been most focused on within Teampact on working out. Cool. A very good point there. Does anyone else have any thoughts about the uses? Oh dear, I'm now still drawing. Does anyone have any thoughts about the kind of the use cases of attendance data and different types of attendance data, perhaps how you use it in your program, how you would like to use it going forward? We've not heard from Nikki yet. Not calling on you if you don't want to talk, but we've not heard from you.
No, that's okay. I mean, we probably don't use it as much as we should in terms of impact assessment. And going a little bit off the topic, is that the sort of thing that Cherie could assist us with? You were mentioning earlier that you did a mental health study to see how many times a child should come to the program before we saw improvements in their mental health. Is that something you guys could assist us implement, or not so much?
Definitely. So I don't want to speak for Cherie too much here, but
Sorry.
that's fine. So Cherie's strength is the broader M&E side of things.
Okay.
I'm on attendance data up to the point of getting the data ready for M&E. At which point it's Cherie's interest more than mine, and expertise much more than mine. So yeah, that's definitely something we can help with, particularly with Teampact attendance data. We're less good with other types of collected attendance data. We're less used to how it's outputted and that kind of thing. But yeah, for sure, working with Teampact attendance data to kind of work on things like impact assessment, particularly with shameless plug, the new survey function in Teampact. Be in touch with me if you would like to help set it up. That combined with attendance data can be really, really useful for impact assessment. So we can work out the state of play with participants at the start of the program with a baseline test. We can then collect attendance data about them using Teampact, and then an endline test, an evaluation at the end of their time in the program to see how metrics have changed, and comparing those with attendance data through Teampact, we can definitely help you set up for sure.
So and then we also we do use it for resource allocation. We've kind of noticed we feed the kids at the end of our program. We've noticed that perhaps at the end of the month we've got higher numbers than at the beginning of the month because parents haven't been paid, so more kids might arrive just for the daily meal. So we know to prepare more foods on those dates according to the data we've collected. And then for the most part, we use it for frequency and for funding reports to show donors, just breakdown of genders and number of kids and rates and that sort of stuff.
Perfect. Yeah. So it's another kind of big wing that Waves for Change found when they started using Teampact was the meals thing. It seems like a silly, little example, but yeah, really knowing how many people you're expecting on a certain day at a certain time helps you to, it doesn't help me, but it helps in our Musenberg office, not have to cook too much and never cook too little. Well, she never cooks too little, but more the kind of reducing the too much. And absolutely funders understanding the reach it broken down by things like gender and race is always something funders are really interested in, and something that hopefully we can accurately report. Does anyone else have any thoughts about any of the above? Cool. If not, I'm not going to push because we've reached 10:55. And now just opening up to the floor more broadly. Does anyone have any thoughts at all about what we've covered in the first session? Again, don't worry if it feels too sort of high level and theoretical. We're really just trying to build a base for more practical, in-depth discussions in future sessions. So yeah, like Cherie said at the beginning, building a kind of base of knowledge and the start of a community where we can address perhaps your more practical concerns in future sessions. So does anyone have any thoughts, anything they are even looking forward to learning, anything that they found interesting, anything that they found not interesting, anything at all? Opening up the floor. And totally fine if not.
I just have a general comment. That is very exciting for me to see how Teampact will make our life easier or streamline this process. We've always done attendance, but always on Excel documents, and it's always been a headache to, to work out the reach. We've got it, but then you go to all these separate spreadsheets to add up the males, the females, and now we just see it on the dashboard, and that's just very exciting. And I think it's going to save us a lot of time.
That's the plan. That's the plan. Cool. Thank you. So we've got a sort of new prospective user here who is
Excited.
Yeah,
and easy to use. So the feedback from our people so far is that it's user friendly and they totally buying into it, which has been very positive. We thought there might be some resistance, and it's like on the contrary.
Awesome. Yeah, really happy to hear. And we're going to go into some we'll have a session soon which will be challenges with collecting attendance data and ways to overcome those. So yeah. So does anyone else have any sort of closing thoughts, anything you'd like to raise? If not, we will be bits that you think would be useful with staff or any other stakeholders you might have. So yeah. Cool. If no one else has any thoughts, I'd just thank Cherie for her input and all of you guys for your input as well. And yeah, would look forward very much to seeing you on the next one, which will be in a couple of months most likely. But yeah, we'll make this recording available, and if anyone would like a sort of theory of attendance data session with any of their staff, please do just get in touch and we'll be happy to organize that on a sort of more organization by organization basis, if you think this would be useful for anyone else. Awesome. In that case, we are at 10:59. Very rare case of good timing on this one. And yeah, thanks so much, guys. We'll end the call now, and yeah, hopefully see you on the next one.